what does Web 2.0 mean for news companies?
One of the things I was trying to do at our panel before this is that how do the media companies learn from what has happened in the Web 2.0 culture, meaning innovation, entrepreneurship on the cheap, and rapid innovation again on the cheap to build a product and then launch it and then constantly modify it. I think that's a lesson which media companies need to learn and bring it to their businesses, and sort of that's what I think as the News 2.0, which I think we were trying to figure out, is how to develop entrepreneurial divisions or projects within a company, and how does that filter into the rest of the company, both from an editorial perspective as well as from a business perspective. I think that's what media companies need to learn.
Now, you talked about from an editorial perspective, and I mean, as a journalist, we think about news stories and we think about journalism. We don't really think about products. How do you see some of these changes actually impacting the thinking of journalists?
Well, I mean, in the sense that, so there's the daily routine of stories which a lot of journalists do, but you have to sort of step back, and I think a lot of companies are recognizing that R&D, which is again an alien concept in news at this point, and letting journalists run with projects which not necessarily are part of the daily grind makes sense. And that's what I mean by product development, is let them do a certain amount, like Google does. 10% of your time you can develop new products. That's their main thing. That's what they do. I think the news companies have to learn to do some of that, to let journalists free for a certain amount of time, certain amount of budget, and let them innovate and see what comes. I mean, an example is what the New York Times is doing. Well, there's one example, is that they created an innovation group. They hired a futurist, they're hiring director of mobility. So they're trying to think of areas where, and trying to do research into what will happen, how do we incorporate that. I think BBC does that to a good extent. Of course, they have the leverage to do it because of the kind of budgets and things that they work with. But I think that's, and to an extent Guardian has been doing that with Comment is Free, which is a separate project. There are various pros and cons to it. But I think that is how the media companies need to look at news and try to develop new products.
So a lot of talk in the discussion about News 2.0 we just had.
Right.
It seemed to get a lot of discussion about quality. What is your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's never bring a blogger versus journalist. Always run into trouble. I mean, that is, it's a debate which will be here 10 years from now. It's not going to end. Yeah, I mean, the concept of quality is true, but I mean, how do you define quality? Is there a quality for a fixed product, or is quality a malleable concept? Meaning, does quality come from something which is perfectly finished, here it's written, versus quality comes from the level of discussion around a story, and the diversity of views that emerge from that. Is that quality? So it depends on what you define as quality. Again, I mean, it's sort of belaboring the point, but that's the point. The point is, do you consider that as quality, or do you consider that as quality? To a lot of people who are inside the discussion, for them, that's the value they get out of it. So for them, that's quality.
So the other question, and I've heard it in a lot of journalism circles, is what's the business model to support, and I hate to use the word again, but quality journalism?
Yeah.
Or in other words, basically the industry is looking for a new business model. What is it?
Yeah, if I were to know that. I mean, the fact is the writing is on the wall. They have to innovate, and they have to sort of, the risk of not embracing this is far greater than the investment that you're making into it. So at this point, what all news companies or media companies are doing is throwing everything against the wall and see what sticks. And at this point, that's the best answer we can have at this point, is let's see what happens, let's do all of this, let's look at it from a longer term perspective, because that's where our future is threatened, and let's try and innovate. At this point, the good part is advertising is booming online, so there's a substantial amount of revenues coming. Use some of that revenues to look at various ways in which you can enhance for the future. So I think that at this point, it's a hope and a prayer, and hope that you work for it.